Angelo Musco,
Hi, how are you?
my favorite artist, photographer in the world.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, you are. Your work is sublime, beautiful,
And
extraordinary. Angelo, for those of our readers of
right,
Bleu Blanc, the magazine that we are doing this interview for, that they don't know you,
right.
please tell us about your story, your life story, and how you became this excellent photographer and doing what you do that you so well.
Well, thank you for the introduction. My work, you know very well what's the story.
I know.
Personally, yeah, the whole work started. Obviously, it changed it later, but the beginning was mostly a autobiographic story. It all started with from the story of my birth that I made um, my practically the core of what I do. So my mother had a dysfunction during her pregnancy and was a very rare genetic case where I was born at almost 11 months, not at 9 months of pregnancy, but almost 11. She refused to go to hospitals and she protected this pregnancy for a long time. She had several issues, including diabetes during the pregnancy. She had 4 kids before me, and all of them were later, but I was the one that reached to this number that a certain point, obviously, it was against nature. So um, I was born in house in the kitchen without the help of anybody except my aunt, and it was a very hard delivery because I was really really big. I was 6.5 kilos.
Wow.
So because I was so big, I was stuck. So my aunt didn't know what to do. They pulled me out and they damaged my neck, my shoulder. So it's a condition that is called Erb's palsy, when it's the tears of all the nerves of my right side. So I couldn't move for the first 2 years of my life. I did therapy for all my life, and I still today have problem, and I use the right side at the 50%. I have weakness in the right side. In fact, a year ago, I had a silly accident, but a silly accident when you already have a weakness could become really bad. So I break bones on the right side much easier than on the left side. So last year I broke my arm. So for 6 months I couldn't move. It's been an ongoing
Yeah.
problem, but I made of all this story um, the fulcrum, the center of my work. So this lack of mobility, uh, the desire of freedom in the movement, I found that in the work. A freedom that I didn't have for years when I was young, and the body, because I was constantly put through therapies and uh, sports and things, in some way made its way into my work. It wasn't really a rational choice. It was always so present that in some way became my paintbrush. So I started working with the body. And I remember when I was at the Academy of Fine Art in Naples, a certain point there was, do you remember those Erasmus plan where you go from one country to another, exchange of students? And I remember I was curious to see what was happening in other places. And I applied for the Erasmus exchange and I moved to Spain. We are talking about early 90s, I think 1991. And I did 2 years of the university in Granada, the Facultad de Bellas Artes in Granada,
Beautiful, Granada.
Spain.
Wow.
And it's where I was introduced to photography in the sense that my training has always been classic paint. But I remember there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And I was looking at into the media that I was using and there was something that it was missing. And I remember taking a class of photography there and it was fantastic. I guess the budgets in Spain at the time were higher than what they were in Italy because we had labs, they gave us paper for printing. Really, we didn't have to spend, everything was included. Very well organized university. And I started exploring photography, classic photography, printing photography on my own. And I found it very, technically speaking, very fascinating. Um, then there was a performance class where one of the teachers I remember forced us to work with our bodies. And I started merging all this new aspect that I was discovering in Spain at the time, things that I wasn't doing in Italy. So I started merging the performance aspect with the photography aspect, and all of a sudden, I was really surprised by the amount of energy and intensity that models that I was using for the performance were bringing into my plate. It wasn't, I felt that like I was the operator, but everything else, all the magic, all the intensity was coming from all these people bringing their, not only their bodies, but their story, their emotion. And I started investigating this idea of using the body and the photography at the same time. And the more I worked, the more I realized the intensity of the work was the intensity of the models. So from, if you jump and you arrive in my reality today where I worked with thousands of people, imagine the intensity when you see all these works, and they are so intense, but the intensity comes from every single story of all these models. They impact me. So I couldn't, it becomes like an addiction. So at a certain point, you need to take from them in order to create your own thing. And um, I, I just thought that obviously without them, I would not exist. So they became my stories. They became my paintbrush, and they brought me to the place where I am today. I'm lucky enough to be an artist that lives on its own art. But I love the fact that I'm bringing around not only a final product, but I'm giving voice to all their stories with their own bodies, with their own emotion, to get to a point where now I am in a place where I decide to describe my stories with my models, with the people of my own life. So this whole journey has been magical, and it's been I'm very, very, very thankful for the people that I run into in the last 20 years that open doors for me, and with their stories. So still today, I think I'm just like a producer of the stories of all these people, and that's where I am today.
And your work is beautiful, beautiful, Angelo. And
Because they are beautiful, because the people part of it are beautiful, because otherwise it will never be beautiful, because it's them, they bring in the depth, the emotion, and everything. And it's funny, sometimes you are in full production and maybe a person says a word or a gesture or something that modifies your thoughts, and in that moment, the piece start changing a little bit because that person did something or said something. So all this, there are lots of sign and little nuance and little change in the work. They are the result of them. I had the main idea, but the piece constantly changed during production because of what it happens.
yes,
Obviously, I have a structure. So obviously, I
exactly.
have a graphic, but you have a cold geometric structures in mind, but then you need them to make a worm and give it life to it. And God, I had them to create that, because otherwise the piece would be like a puzzle. It would be like a collage, but it's
Yeah,
not. It,
exactly. And these groups of people that you work with for making everything you do, sometimes they will have something in common, or they
right?
will go some other place, no, or they can collide or not. So every
Yeah,
place,
and every time is different experience. Every photo shoot is a different experience. What I actually do, because sometimes there are models that come back because they love the experience, what I do all the time, I always pick a different locations. I have two studios in New York, two large studios in the city. I'm right in Midtown, but I never take pictures of them in the studio unless it's just a small group, because I want to be a new experience for all of them. If they return, every time I had to have a different location, a different studio. So we rent different spaces because it has to be a new experience. If I do a photo shoot in a space and they come back, they know exactly how it's going to
yes,
go.
how it's going to be.
it's going to be, it's that I think has to be a new experience every time. So I always choose a different locations. And in this last project, for me to go around the world, it validates the same concept, because every time it was in a different location with different people.
Exactly.
And it's important because it's a different story all the time. And it's
You
a
had
different
someone in Mexico?
What?
You had someone in Mexico for this?
I would love to do a photo shoot in Mexico. No, but I had someone in Mexico that I took picture of it in New York.
Okay,
Because this person was in New York, so was involved in New York City. But I'm still very curious, and I would love to do a large photo shoot in Mexico at a certain point. When hopefully when it will be back to normal, when people can be in the same space and they can touch each other at that point. Because yeah,
I hope we can see you very soon in
right.
Miguel, that we love so much, both of us, and in Mexico City. And I want to be someday in one of your shootings, for one.
Oh, absolutely, done.
And
Done. We'll do it.
we'll wait for your new for everything that's gonna happen with your new work, and we'll be expecting you here in Mexico, and with a lot of space for your work.
Thank you. We cannot wait to be there and hopefully we'll bring the Land of Scars, this new piece, and that it represents all the last 2 years of my life, and bring it there to Mexico.
Exactly. Please, your Instagram for everybody to see your work.
My Instagram is Angelo Musco Studio, one word, and it's a composition. It's almost a catalog of my art. I use Instagram only for showing my art in details. So every square is a details of a large piece. It's the only way for me to show the details, because if I put a large piece in a small square, you cannot zoom and see the details. So it's just a composition to allow people to get in and understand the dynamic and the size and the amount of work that we put in it.
The first time I saw your work was in Sonamaco, in Patricia Conde's space. And right. I saw this beautiful flower, but I was away. And right. when I started walking, and when I was in front of that photograph, I was exploding with, oh my God, this can be, it's magical. And what you do is magic, Angelo Musco. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and good luck with everything. And hopefully things will get better, and we'll see you in person in Mexico City.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much. We love you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.